Hi, good morning everybody. Happy Friday. Hope you're well on this gloomy, dreary November morning. Hope you're having a great week. Today we are talking about culture. I've had quite a few conversations recently with people about what kind of culture they're building in their business and what that really means for them and their team. So I thought we could spend a little bit of time today just going through that and maybe getting some of your thoughts and answering some of your questions. So I've been looking into what do we mean by culture, and actually when I wrote my book I was looking into different kinds of company cultures and how they get created. And let's start then with what do I mean by culture? What do you mean by culture? So if you look up the word culture in the dictionary, it talks about a kind of a common understanding, a common beliefs amongst a group of people, the norms, the standards. How do we do things around here? What are our common understandings of what's okay and what's not okay? So this is what we mean by culture, and culture is something that's quite difficult to define in an organisation, but you can definitely feel when you're in a good culture or a bad culture. And again, I was looking at what are some examples of good culture and bad culture. So some of the things, let's start with the bad. When you're in a bad or a toxic culture, often communication is poor or very tightly controlled. So knowledge is very tightly controlled in a bad company culture. So people are very resistant maybe to share knowledge. They're keeping things close to their chest, or it's all about who you know, and information is kind of used as power. That is one of the ways that bad culture can grow up in an organisation. And I'm sure that many of you have had experiences of being in that kind of culture where you don't quite know where you are because the communication is not being shared widely. Another example of bad culture is where people are being micromanaged. So we've talked a lot in previous lives around delegation and empowering your people, and the opposite of that is micromanagement. So what I mean by that is when you're looking over people's shoulders and you are telling them exactly how you want to do things, and you're really kind of each step, kind of critiquing and looking, and people find that very difficult, especially if you have more senior or experienced people. They really want you to tell them where do you want me to get to, what's the objective, rather than telling them do this and then do this and then do this. Maybe somebody that's more junior or somebody that's just learning is okay with that the first time, but then you have to let people go. And if you are micromanaging them, then that can lead to people feeling like you don't trust them, and feeling like they're always kind of on edge because you're always looking over their shoulder and kind of checking up on them, and people really don't like that. Another symptom of a bad culture is actually poor management. So generally managers not spending time with their people, always being too busy, not knowing what's going on, not coaching their people, not encouraging them, being disorganised, being unstructured, I spoke to somebody a few weeks ago who gave me an example of a manager who asked 3 different people to do the same thing, and then just whoever did it quickest, it's like, oh great, I'll take that one, and then the other 2 people were kind of left hanging. That's an example of really, really poor management, and that again leads to people feeling mistrusted, undervalued, and just generally not very happy and not very productive. Leading on from that, another example of bad culture is where you see favoritism. So you see managers having their favourites and assigning work or opportunities to people that they like, often kind of yes people that just kind of agree with them, rather than making an assessment about who the best person is to do the job or who's the best person to have a conversation. I was speaking to a client earlier on this week who had an example of somebody that was leaving her team and gave her the feedback that her manager had, instead of sending this person who was the best person for the job, had decided to go themselves. And so that is an example of poor management and not really explaining things properly. So favoritism is something that you see a lot in poor company cultures. Another thing, and I'm sure you've all had an experience of this, is where there's a lot of gossip going on. So a lot of people chatting about what's going on. A lot of people talking behind each other's backs, kind of cliques forming. So where you see a culture where there's a lot of gossip, that can be an indication that things are not going too well. So enough of all that bad culture. What makes a good culture? So it really does start with having the right people in your team. We've spoken before about even having one person that doesn't fit, isn't the right fit, especially when you have a small team, can have a huge impact. That impact of one person can really have a huge negative impact. So getting the right people, and what I always advise clients is that you need a values fit. You want somebody that is aligned with your values and the values of the organisation. So it used to be all the rage, actually. People used to talk about cultural fit a lot, but what used to happen was that you were hiring people maybe from the same cultural, in the broader sense, cultural background, maybe from the same educational background, or even the same ethnic or social background. And actually that means that you have a very narrow perspective. Recruiting people based on values means that you can have people from a very diverse range of backgrounds, social, economic, cultural, educational backgrounds, but you're lined up in terms of values. So how are you doing business? What's important to you? What are your standards in your business, and what are you delivering to your customers? So if you can get people that are lined up in terms of your values, that is a really great start to having a good culture. The second thing I would say about a good culture is that having people aware and lined up around your goals and your vision. We spoke about vision over the last couple of weeks, and having people aware, involved, and signed up and bought into your vision is a really important, critical step in terms of building a great culture. And in terms of communication, whereas I mentioned in the bad culture, communication is used almost as a weapon. Knowledge is power. In a good culture, I always tell business owners, you need to do more communication than you ever think that you should be doing, especially as your team grows. And so making sure that people have communication lines open to you, making sure you're having regular sessions with the whole team, even if you have a management team, that you as the leader are having regular sessions with your team around communication, around what are we doing, what's our goal, what's our plan, and what's our big vision. Keep reminding people of what we're doing this, why are we here, and what are we trying to deliver to our customers. That is also a way to make people feel aligned around, and that's a way to build a great culture. The next thing I would say is around empowerment and decision making. It's super important that people understand what decisions they can make and what decisions managers can make and what decisions you're making. And the more you can empower your people, the more they will step up and contribute to a really great culture. If you treat people like children, they will behave like children. If you treat people like professionals, they will behave like professionals, generally speaking. So empowering your people and being really clear about decisions and who gets to make what decisions is super important. And clear roles and responsibilities goes along with that. I think the other piece of culture is really around team. So this is my fourth point around culture, is it's really about reinforcing the fact that we're a team, so it's not about individuals, it's about the team. And that really starts with you as the leader. You need to walk the walk, you need to talk the talk, yeah? You need to really be leading from the front. You need to be including your people, you need to be working in a consensual way. Yes, ultimately the buck stops with you and you're making those big decisions, but it is really about the power of the team. It's that concept that that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that is about understanding your people and how they contribute and what puts them into their flow. So these are the elements for me of a good culture. And why is having a good culture important? Why do you want to have a good culture? Ultimately, it is about your people. It's about them being happy and looking forward to coming to work. And why is that important? Because then they'll be more productive. They'll get more done. They'll deliver more for your customers, and they'll stay around. A company that has a great culture will also attract great people. People want to work for companies that have great cultures. So it is really important to think about what kind of culture you're building as you grow. And one of the really important things around a culture is to have a conversation with your people about what standards do you want to have in your company, in your culture. What standards do you want to hold yourself to? I'm working with a client at the moment where we're talking about accountability, people taking responsibility for their own commitments. So you've all been in meetings where we decide on a series of actions and we say we're going to do it by Friday, and then it doesn't get done. And we know why, because everybody's so busy. But the problem is with that is that it becomes acceptable not to do your actions. And so I've been speaking with this client about setting the standard with the management team that says we all agree that we will not commit to an action unless we are actually going to do it. And once we've committed to it, we are actually going to get it done. And so that moving of actions from management meeting to management meeting, that only happens by exception. Now that's a very difficult thing to achieve in a fast growing company where everybody is hugely busy. But that is the kind of thing where you make a decision, you set a standard as a management team, and that becomes part of the way we do things around here, which is part of your company culture. And the most important thing is that it needs to start with you, because if you just say, we are not going to move actions, we are all going to do our actions, and then you are seen not to be doing that yourself, your team will not follow you. So be careful about what kind of standards you set, because you need to be absolutely embodying, epitomizing those standards. But if you can have a conversation with your management team that says, what standard do we want to set for ourselves and for our people around something as simple but as fundamental as keeping our word, keeping our commitment? These are the kinds of things that make a culture. It's about being congruent between what you say and what you do. And that starts with you as the business owner. I would love to hear your thoughts around what cultures have you experienced, what culture are you trying to build in your business, what's important to you around that sense of culture, that sense of ethos, the way we do things in my business. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. Hope that's provoked some thoughts in your mind and some ideas. Let us know what you think. Also, let us know what your goals are. On Monday, let us hold you accountable. How are you getting on this week with your goals for this week? I hope you have a really great rest of the day, and I hope you have a great weekend. And I will speak to you soon. Take good care. Bye now.